rusty. So it's time to get our service started this evening. And when Belinda's ready, we'll ask her to open us in prayer. She probably didn't. Hey, Belinda. Belinda. So if you're ready, would you open us in prayer?
Yes. I gotta hear you first. Let's bow our heads. Lord, we'll stop and thank you for the privilege and pleasure to be in your house tonight. Lord, we just thank you for the day that you've given us. And even though I've had my personal challenges through the afternoon, I still appreciate your mercy and your grace to allow me to come out to your house and hear the word of God. We pray that you be with each one. If someone's not walking the life or don't have you within their hearts, Lord, we just pray that something will be said and your spirit may knock upon their hearts, Lord, that they may realize that they need a Savior in their life, or they may realize they need to move closer up to you. Lord, we just praise you and thank you for who you are and what you've done. And we always want to give you all the glory. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Janice, you and Matt, bring Mason up.
Ronnie was playing that piano a bit when we came in.
Ronnie, you want Ronnie? Ronnie, they said they want you to play the piano. I forgot Asher. Hey, you play the guitar too? I forgot it. Oh no.
Page 62. 62. Stand if you would, please.
I'll let Janice get there. I said I'll let Janice get there.
There is a name I love to hear. I love to sing His word. It sounds as music in my ears, the sweetest name on earth. because he first loved me.
So it is good to be in God's house this evening, and it's good to have you guys with us. And in case y'all didn't know, Marcia did not bite Rusty, contrary to popular belief, but she did have a big part in causing it. So we'll just do that way. How's that?
It's all her fault.
Plain and simple. Her fault.
Make all the food, make all the food fall, cut up all the food, it's all her fault.
Why didn't
And hers, and his, so.
Well, why didn't you do that earlier if she's going to bait all the hooks? Someone have a testimony tonight or song, something you want to. Go ahead, Kaylee.
I want to thank God. Thank God. I just got confirmed that I'm pregnant. If y'all wasn't here a couple Sundays ago, I felt the presence and God told me this was it. It's it. And I want to thank everybody for praying for me, and Jesse. And I want to tell you, keep praying
Sure.
that everything goes smoothly. But thank you guys. Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit more excited. Like the Barbara is here, they know this excitement. That's my baby. So it's overwhelming, but I have to tell my story. And some of this Kaylee doesn't even know what transpired today. I had a visitor, Mason, come to see me today, and if anybody's been around me at 2:22 for the last month or so, I put that on my timer, and my phone goes off, like, pray for Kaylee. It's just a time that one day I was thinking, looked over the clock, and then, ooh, that could be a due date, maybe. I'm gonna put that on my timer for 2 months or so. I've been praying at that time. So Mason comes and sees me, it's about 2 o'clock. And we're in there talking, my beeper goes off and says, "You gotta go, I can get out of here." And I said, "No." And I explained to him what it was. So he said, "Okay, then let's do it." So we took a few minutes and Mason prayed, and within 5 minutes, Haley walked through my door in my office and said, "I'm pregnant." So the overwhelming presence of God in that moment, and in the times that we've experienced in her professing that at communion that night, it's been overwhelming. She has struggled, Jesse has struggled. I appreciate every text, concern, prayer that she's felt from you guys, because it's not been an easy road for them. So I just appreciate everybody and just continue to pray for me. I love you too.
Hold just a second, Bruce. Just 1 second. Something else? Anybody? Come on, Bruce.
Yes, ma'am. I went to the dentist in Haifa, mine got down there near Sarvin, where I grew up. Charlie's mother took me, and the map on her phone took her the wrong way. We got down Oak Hill and turned the director up in behind their shop there. And I knew that wasn't right with her. I said, "Leave when you get back down Route 19. We got back down Route 19. I basically know the way there, but when I got down the turn off there, precious son designed, comparable to fine gold? Are they esteemed in earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter? Even the sea monsters draw out the beasts, they give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. The son of the suckling child cleaveth to the refuse mouth for thirst. The young children ask bread, and no man breaketh unto them. That they did feed delicately or desolate in the streets. They were brought up in scarlet and embracing dunghills. For the punishment iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown as in a moment, and no hand laid on her. May God have a blessing to read this holy word. I'm gonna play a couple songs here. This way we hear how to do our own. First one I'm gonna play is How Great Thou Art. And this next one I'm gonna play is the Circle Them Broken. Okay.
God is good, isn't he? You know, I tell you, I love to hear that. And I'm so glad for her. You know, I know how bad she wanted a baby. And then, you know, I got two coming. They ain't far out either. I'm sure my life's going to change, but, you know, it's a shame in this world you see all the kids that's out here that nobody wants them. To have somebody that really wants one. I thank God for the answered prayer. I thank him for what he's done for me. And he continues to watch over me every day. So y'all pray for me while I try to sing a song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, light shining as the sun, save a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
Someone else tonight with a song or testimony.
I'd like to stand and thank the Lord for watching after me, and I've been thank everybody for their prayers. I've been since March, waiting on tests and results, and I asked everybody to pray for me. Well, I went today to my doctor, and I have to say, I've been aggravated with them, and I have to say, forgive me, Lord, but they kind of got on my nerves, but when I went today, he said, I don't have COPD. That nodule or the thing I had on my lungs, it's gone, thank God. And he said, on my right lobe or whatever, I had once where I had pneumonia. I said, well, doctor, I've never had pneumonia. He said, yes, you have. So I guess when I doctor myself and don't know, I guess I haven't. And, but anyways, they're sending me in 3 weeks back for a test. And he just wants to check that part. And, I go, Monday, I go the 24th to another doctor, and then I go the 26th. Still keep praying, the different ones that by the end of July, I'll have all my results. I feel good, it's just, you know, a few little aches and pains, but it's just something that I need to get done. I just thank him for everything that he does for me and for my family. And, I went to the funeral of my cousin today, and, my brother came. I asked him if he was coming, and he didn't know, but anyhow, he came, and they had the preacher. I think it was Ken Manning, from the Church of Beaver or whatever, but he was there and listened to everything, and I noticed he paid attention. So y'all just pray for him, that, you know, he sees that he needs the Lord. And, Marvin went to the doctor today. They have a heart monitor on him, and, they're gonna check him to see, you know, what's wrong. But anyhow, just pray that all that works out.
Sure. Somebody else?
I had a little situation yesterday, and I just want to thank the Lord for His grace and mercy and the opportunity to grow through my failures. And I just also want to extend thanks to the pastor. There's not many times do I go through situations, you know, that I really need someone else's advice. And he's been there, you know, for those situations, give me his opinion, or give me God's opinion on the situation, you know, and also to be able to help me see it through God's lens kind of thing, and I thank you for that, you know. I'm really glad that I have the opportunities I have to be able to grow and become more Christ-like, because really that's my overall goal. You know, sometimes we miss the mark, but I thank the Lord for allowing me to grow through those failures and facing people, not just pastor, but facing all y'all in my life, because I can learn from everybody.
Sure. Somebody else with the testimony.
I just stand up, say praise the Lord, so far I've kept my faith, but what happened, who knows, he done ain't faith, but, I'd like to thank all y'all for your prayers.
Amen. Good to see you.
happen if you stayed out of South Carolina? I'm just kidding. Anything else? If you want to read along, I'm going to read to you out of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. First Thessalonians chapter 4, starting at verse 9. But as touching brotherly love, ye need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love one another. And indeed ye do it toward all the brethren which are in Macedonia. But we beseech you, brethren, that ye increase more and more, and that ye study to be quiet, and to do your own business, and to work with your own hands, as we commanded you, that ye may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that ye may lack nothing, may have lack of nothing. Sorry, missed that one. The coming of the Lord. Okay, so I'm not going to retouch on all of this, but there was one real part there, and starting at verse 11, it says, and that ye study to be quiet. You ever had to study to be quiet? Is it a hard thing to do for a lot of us? To be quiet? I had a cousin growing up we called her Motor Mouth because she never shut up. And no, Katie's not my cousin. Katie Bug had her own set of issues. You need more practice studying, Rusty, being quiet, I guess. But she was a good girl, but she just talked and talked and talked. Y'all, I'm sure y'all know people like that. You can't get a word in edgewise when you're talking to them. You think that when they take a deep breath that you're going to say something, but before you can say it, that breath's done in and out and they're talking about a different subject. But anyway, when I read that, you know, most of us like it quiet to study. And then a lot of us, when it's quiet, we try to study, we just go to sleep. I don't know about you guys, but that seems like what happens to me a lot is as soon as things get quiet and you settle down and you're getting ready to study, and then your head falls over your lap, or your Bible or whatever falls off your lap, or your eyes just close, and it's just one of those things. But when I was looking at this and it said study to be quiet, it's like, what in the world is it talking about? But you know, the more and more that we're in this life, the busier that things get. And I do believe that the busyness in our life is a tool of Satan that gets us so busy and so distracted that we have to work at taking time to study. And when I was looking at that, you know, I said, why in the world would you have to study to be quiet? But you know, we have to practice. We have to make it a habit. We have to put forth effort to set aside that quiet time so that we can read God's word and then listen to what he's actually saying to us. You know, there's a lot of ways that God can speak to us. But one of them is that quiet time that you have as you're reading his word and he speaks into your heart in that still small voice. And if you're being loud and everything's going crazy and this and that and you're distracted by this, you might miss that quiet voice that he has for you. But it was kind of when I was looking at that, and to study to be quiet, I was kind of looking at some other versions to say, what in the world does that really mean? And I was looking at a different version, and it says, make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business. And I thought, if each and every one of us had a quiet life, how much different things would be. Because we are rushed and we're doing this, and no sooner we get this done than we got 6 or 7 more things on our list that we need to do, and we have to run over there and start one. We no sooner get into that, and then somebody calls and we're doing. We just get so distracted so much, and we're so on the go. And I'm not saying that you guys per se, because this is my life as well. I will have to say, with the kids gone, it has been a quiet week this week. We have actually, I miss it. I miss them. I miss my little piano player. I don't know about Mason, but I miss her. But it actually has been a little quiet around the house. And so much, in fact, that it usually causes an argument between me and Jennifer. And it don't get quiet for very long, let's put it that way. But when I was just reading that's kind of what just jumped out at me, that we have to study to be quiet. And it's something that I don't know about you guys, but I need to work on as well in my life, to spend that quiet time with God, to have some more of that time to spend with Him, to listen to what He has to say. Someone else? Thought?
You know, I can agree with you. I find it life a lot more easier if I stay in my own lane.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I have that voice and I have that Holy Spirit that tells me I might not want to say that. And I listen, and in doing so, I can see how my obedience has saved matters, or has made things less difficult, or didn't hurt somebody's feelings because I wanted to speak my mind and not Jesus. You know, I know that we all have that gift, and I think if we all listen to it, you know, get a lot less problems.
Yeah.
We wouldn't struggle with things. Kind of part of what happened yesterday. I let my mouth take control, my emotions take control, rather than listen to the Lord at that time. I handled the matter not the way I should have.
It's a work in progress. Luke, come on. Matthew, he's going to finish up?
Yes, sir.
All right. Listen to Matthew.
Good evening, everybody. A little thirsty tonight, so I might take a few dramatic pauses while I'm up here. That's a dramatic pause.
You gotta put the pinky out.
The pink. All right, so I don't know if everybody's been here for the last few Wednesdays, but we've been doing the book of Ruth. Tonight is the last chapter, chapter 4, and then I will be out of your hair for the time being, maybe. I don't know. So the book of Ruth, each week I've done a little bit of a recap. This week I got a story before I start my recap that I told Deb I was going to use, and she thinks I'm going to offend her, but I promise I'm really not. I don't know why she would think that. I don't think I ever offend her. Yeah, Rusty said not unless she started it first. We were talking, it was a couple nights ago, we were all eating dinner together, and She told me the story of Ruth was boring. I got kind of offended. Boring. I said, well, thanks. But she went on to say, there's no miracles really that happens in the book of Ruth. We don't see fire raining down from heaven. We don't see plagues. We don't see people getting thrown into the lion's den. God doesn't split the sea. And I was offended still. But then I went home and I thought, darn, she has a point. Well, that's great, because I really like it too, because it's everyday life. It's everyday boring life, and that's what I am going to hope to drive the point home. Deb gave me the thought, so you can thank Deb. I don't think she realized she'd be changing my whole last chapter's thought with that statement, but she did.
But I had a man follow me home one time,
You what?
and I married him.
Oh, you did?
So, Ruth's story of them coming together as a couple, I think is beautiful.
Did he offer your parents the bride price?
At least he never knew until later that I called him a jerk, because he wasn't from my father.
That's funny. It's okay. Jacqueline thought I was a jerk because I'm from Ohio. All right, so we will continue on with our boring story. This is to recap our boring story. So we had Naomi and her family go to Moab, chapter 1. Husband dies, son gets married, sons get married, sons die. To recap the whole first chapter, Naomi's left with 2 daughter-in-laws. Orpah, the one daughter-in-law, leaves. She returns to her family and her gods. Naomi and Ruth return to Bethlehem. Ruth says, wherever you will go, I will go. I looked it up. From Moab to Bethlehem's approximately 50 to 60 miles. At the time, their husbands are dead. They assumedly did not have much money, so it was likely on foot. I looked it up. A Olympic speed walker walks an average of 20 miles a day, so that's your fit walker. I don't think I would make it 20 miles a day. They're over in the Middle East. It's hot. It's sandy. There is a river to cross, so just all kinds of fun stuff to go on and make the trip probably depressing, to be honest. So remember, what does Bethlehem mean? House of bread. And why is the house of bread significant? Why is that significant? Because Jesus is the bread of life. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, so out of Bethlehem literally comes the bread of life. So remember, Ruth and Naomi are poor. Ruth goes, she gleans from Boaz's field, she collects from the leftover, and we talked about the gleaning process from the Old Testament. And she catches the eye of Boaz. Boaz is described in Ruth chapter 2 as a mighty man of wealth. Boaz protects Ruth and Naomi. Boaz provides for them, and Ruth takes interest in Boaz. And we also learned in chapter 3 about how each of them have integrity, and they're known for having integrity. We talked about the near kinsmen in Leviticus chapter 25, and that they could redeem the dead one's relatives and the relatives' property. To go a little farther than that, or farther into that, it was actually so the property did not go to another tribe, because if you remember, when they went into Canaan, they split the land up. That land was each tribe's property, so this was another way to make sure that the land stayed in each tribe as well. Naomi tells Ruth how to approach Boaz. We went into the interesting feet story and the threshing floor. Then Ruth basically tells Boaz, I want to marry you. She gives him this proposal that was a Jewish a way of saying, basically, I want to marry you. I want you to carry on the family name. And Boaz says that he is not the nearest kinsman. There's one near to him. And that is kind of where we left off. I skipped to my slide too early. Maybe I didn't. All right. So as we talked about, this is a normal story, a boring story, as Deb says, with no great miracles like other books of the Bible. We see, but we also see all kinds of things that happen as we go through the story. There's the loss of a spouse. There's the loss of children and a child. There is the loss, or leaving the family, so kind of a loss of a family, 50 to 60 miles to a whole different nation, walking back and forth. They probably did not see each other. They came back to Bethlehem. They lived poor. And it seemed like they couldn't continue their family at points. They were dealing with family loss. But through all that, God still cares for us, even in our boring lives. Thank you, Deb. So we have a normal story about normal people. I was thinking, I heard something somewhere along the line throughout human history, 99.99% of the time there has not been a miracle, as we would call it in the Old Testament, like God coming down, splitting the Red Sea. Those were rare in the Old Testament as well. But we'll get to the everyday miracle by the end of the story, I promise. So what do we see in the book of Ruth as we're, like I said, we're concluding our story today? That we see, we talked a couple times about good interactions with coworkers, how Boaz seemed to be respected by his workers, or he respected his workers respected him. Just kind of an interesting moral that comes into the story. We see the restoration of family, as we'll get today. Sorry for the spoiler. I hope you've read it before. We see living morally and with integrity. We see a story about finding a spouse. We see a story about resisting temptation and a restoration of faith in God. And finally, we see God fulfilling his promise from generations beforehand through everyday boring interactions.
Hey, Matt,
Yes,
now Ruth was a Moabite, right?
correct.
Okay, now, what really caught mine and Dom's, so we discussed this yesterday, is God used her from a tribe that they sacrifice babies
Yes,
and all this stuff, and yet he used her, you know, in religion, you know, she,
exactly.
and
You're getting ahead of me.
really? Okay, it's it.
You can go on.
No. I mean, it just really gets our attention.
So, as I put up here, God still works in everyday life, in our boring lives. I'm sure everybody's been in a time where they think their life's boring, but God is still there, as we see through the whole story of Ruth. Any other questions?
The Moabites, they got started through Moab, didn't they?
Correct.
And see, lost two daughters, and I had two children between them. And one of them was his daughter-in-law, wasn't it? And that was, got named Moab. The other one's name was the other one's name Benaniah?
Something like that. They were both his daughters.
Yeah, I know, but one of them was Moab, wasn't it?
Right. And that is how Moab got started.
That's how it all got started, yeah. I just said if I remember correct.
That's it, yep. Any more questions?
So I've always said that I'm living a dream, so I'm living a boring dream.
Exactly. That's it. Thanks to Deb.
Let me just clarify. So, I also told Matt you've done a great job.
I didn't say you didn't say that.
I learned a lot. You presented it to me as I can apply it to my everyday life. I like that and what's going on. I just said there was no, I guess, action is what I want to say. And I said, it's boring. And you said it's boring.
I told you I was offended. Deb doesn't love stories. That's the takeaway for tonight. All right, we'll skip on now to chapter 4. We'll get started before I get too far off the rails here. So remember,
Wouldn't it be a sign of restoration
what's that?
with the whole story?
It is. We'll get there. So chapter 3 ended with Boaz going to speak to it ended with Boaz going to speak to this other man, and Naomi. It was somebody that was related to Elimelech, which was Naomi's husband. And we ended the chapter. I'm going to read just the last verse of the last chapter real quick. It says, "Sit still, my daughter." This is Naomi talking to Ruth. "Until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day." So it's kind of an interesting interaction between Naomi and Ruth. As we've talked about before, they have more or less become a mother-daughter pair here, and she seems to know somewhat of Boaz's integrity and knows that he basically will not rest until he gets this figured out. So again, as I pointed out last week, that kind of shows more of the interest that Ruth and Boaz have in each other. It's more than just kind of a contract that some of the Old Testament marriages were that we see. All right, so chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by. Unto him he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit down here. And they sat down. So Boaz goes to the nearest kinsman. He greets him. I think we ought to use that greeting. Ho, such a one. That's a good greeting. So he brought some elders of the city to basically witness the conversation. This is going to be a contract of sorts, so he wants witnesses to see how this matter pans out. Verse 3, it says, "And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's." Brother here I don't think means actual brother, it means relative. Skipping on, verse 4, it says, "And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants, and before the elders of the people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it." So remember, Boaz seems interested in Ruth. This seems to me like a uh-oh moment for Boaz, because now this other guy's saying, yes, I'll redeem it. But we also know Boaz wants to do the right thing. He wants to do things by the books. So we'll skip on. Verse 5, it says, "Then said Boaz, What day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it." So Boaz tells this man that if he redeems the land, he inherits Ruth in a sense. He would be purchasing the land, and he would be getting Ruth. There could have been a bride price attached with this, kind of like what I said to Luke if he paid Belinda's parents. I personally gave Mason 7 goats and 4 ox I'm just kidding. So he can't. He says he can't do it, or he's going to mess up his inheritance. And I kind of looked that up. Could have meant one of two things, or even both. So the man may have been married, or may have been set up to be married, and he just didn't want a second wife. He also could have had kids. He wanted his estate to go to his kids. He didn't want another woman with other kids being raised up through the name of Ruth's late husband. So that would essentially mess up his inheritance. Or to add another thing, he may not have been able to afford both. He may have been able to afford the land, but not whatever the bride price would have been. Traditionally, when a man wed a woman, as we've said, they offered deals. We see that with Jacob whenever he goes off and works for Laban for 7 years, gets tricked, gets Leah instead of Rachel. Then he works another 7 years. So the price could have been money, it could have been livestock, could have been crops, could have been work. So verse 7, it says, "Now this was a manner in the former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing." And remember I said we'd come back to the shoe whenever we talked last week. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor and was a testimony in Israel. This is an awesome tradition. I wish we did it. Luke told me I could teach on Wednesday, so I will offer him my shoe. Just kidding. So if you don't, like I said, if you didn't remember, we read that in Leviticus 25 and Deuteronomy 25. I'll read Deuteronomy 25 again. It says, if brethren dwell together, this is verses 5 through 10, and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of the brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. And if the man like not to take the brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak unto him, and if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her, then shall the brother's wife come unto the presence of the elders and loose his shoe from off his foot and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto the man that will not build up his brother's house. So we see the shoe thing, but what we're missing here is the spitting in the face. So what I wonder is what is in Deuteronomy 25 is this is actually a wife of a brother who had passed away. She is basically accusing him of not doing the duty. So that's the spitting in the face. So now it's kind of turned into trading the shoe for the contract, which I think we need to do. When you buy a house, you should give your shoe. That's awesome. Anyways, we see that now Boaz is kind of set up to redeem Naomi's property and Ruth. I also think Boaz, he phrased it, I think he really knew this guy before he went over there. I think he probably knew in the back of his head that he was not going to accept the property once he knew Ruth was attached to it, because he worded it specifically. He worded the property, he let him answer, then he said, oh, but you get Ruth. No, I don't take it. So I think he did that specifically, which I don't know. I think this whole story is really cool. Verse 8, therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's, that was Elimelech and Naomi's sons, of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead unto his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. Ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate of the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come unto thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, which is Bethlehem, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare to Judah, of the seed which is the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So verse 12 here is kind of interesting. Luke, not too long ago, did a read-through of Genesis. So we went over the whole story between Pharez, Tamar, and Judah. It's another kind of black spot in the Old Testament. It's kind of a really weird story. When I first read it, I was like, why are they comparing these two to these two? So if you don't remember the story, it's in Genesis. Tamar is Judah's daughter-in-law. Judah's sons die. Judah kind of blames Tamar for their death, and it doesn't, the way we read it, it doesn't appear she was guilty in that at all. Then she kind of disguises herself through duplicity, ends up pregnant with Judah's son. But something I was reading was that Tamar actually kind of cared for the family line of Judah, and that is what is being said here, that Ruth is going to continue on the family line of Boaz as Tamar did to Judah, even though that story is really kind of messed up. Verse 13, it says, "So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not let thee this day without a kinsman, and his name be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age, and thine daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom and became nurse to it." Do me a favor, don't look at verse 17. It says, And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There's a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. Do we know who Obed is? Without looking. We're skipped ahead. So he's the father of Jesse, who is the father of David. So now Naomi is in the line of kings, literally. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So we see now that Ruth is restored. It says that his name is Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David, which was the second king in Israel. So Ruth is not just married. We talked about last week, she is in love with this man. He's in love with her. It's not just not necessarily contract that they had. They had attraction to each other. They were interested in each other. Ruth, who was a Moabite, is now married to a mighty man of wealth, a godly man. And we talked about how the Moabites had a poor reputation in Israel. They worshipped a god that they sacrificed humans and specifically children to their god. So they did not have a good reputation among godly people in Israel. But now we see that this Moabitess is not only married to an Israelite, but is now going to be in the line of David. And again, Ruth is restored by Boaz. So she was a stranger. She was poor. She's now in the line of kings, just like Christ did for us. When he died for us on the cross, we were strangers with no hope. When we accept in our heart that he lived, died, and rose again, and we realize that, and accept that, then we can become children of God, the one who set up the kings and created man. Romans 8 takes a little bit farther. It says, "For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together." So how awesome is that? That Christ didn't just come to save us. He didn't just come to give us a place in heaven, but we get adopted and we get to be joint heirs with Christ. So literally in the bloodline, as the Jews would look at it, as if they are adopted, they're mentioned in the bloodline of Christ. I'll kind of get to that in a minute. But that, to me, is awesome. Not only was Ruth restored, but Naomi's hope is restored in that she is now a grandmother. And as we read, what verse was that? Verse 15, it says that Ruth was better to her than 7 sons. I just deleted something out of my notes. So Naomi's hope is restored. She's a grandmother. She gets to raise her grandson. Ruth becomes the great-grandmother of David. Naomi is now the great-great-grandmother through how the Israelite law worked. And Ruth has become better than 7 sons, as I said. So now let's go on to verse 18. It says, "Now these are the generations of Pharez." Pharez was the son born to Tamar and Judah. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram. And Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nahshon. Nahshon begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz. And Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse. And Jesse begat David. Who skips the lineages in the Bible? Raise your hand. I've been with you. I've read them. I've tried not to read them. Some of it's awful, especially when you get to Chronicles. Kings, and they're like, who are all these people? So I did you a favor and I looked a few of them up. So let's flip to Matthew chapter 1. We're going to read the lineages that everybody skips, except the last couple.
Sometimes lineages are cool.
Sometimes they are. Because we see in this lineage, if we go back and look at the stories, the promises God fulfilled and brings through just these lineages. It's awesome. That'd be it. All right, so from here we start with Abraham, but we can go back from Abraham all the way back to Adam. But verse 1 of Matthew chapter 1, it says, the book of the generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren. And Judas, which is Judah, begat Phares and Zara of Thamar or Tamar. And Phares begat Esrom, and Esrom begat Aram. Aram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Naasson, and Naasson begat Salmon. Salmon begat Booz or Boaz of Rechab, which I have seen translated as Rahab, which could have been Rahab from, I just blanked on the city. Jericho? Yes, the harlot. It's funny how we remember people in the Bible by their sins' names, but that's not how Jesus remembers us. Anyways, and Boaz begat Obed of Ruth. So again, now we have Rahab and Ruth, both non-Jews, in the lineage of Jesus. Awesome. It shows how he just brings all these pieces together. And Obed begat Jesse. Jesse begat David the king. And David the king begat Solomon of her that he had been the wife of Urias, which is Uriah. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Uriah and Bathsheba and that whole messed up story. So now Bathsheba, that whole story is just a really sad story. She is also in the lineage of Jesus mentioned here. And Solomon begat Rehoboam, which is Rehoboam. And Rehoboam begat Abiah. Abiah begat Asa. Asa begat Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat begat Joram. Joram begat Ozias, which is Uzziah. Ozias begat, I don't know how to say that one, Jotham. And Jotham begat Achaz, which is Ahaz, a very bad king in Israel. Ahaz begat Ezekias, which is Hezekiah. Ezekias begat Manasseh. Manasseh begat Amon. Amon begat Josias, which is Josiah. Josias begat Jachinus and his brethren. And we'll skip on down to verse 16. It says, and Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. So we can go through all of this. All of these people have a backstory. You can read about, I believe, all of them in the book of Kings and Chronicles. You can go through more lineage in those if you'd like. If you're having trouble with sleep tonight, I recommend doing that. Might put you to sleep pretty quick. So Ruth the Moabite is not only in the line of David, but is now mentioned in the line of Jesus, which is awesome. To me, it's more awesome if you're a Jew and you track your lineage. I couldn't tell you the name of my great-grandparents. I could maybe, if pressed, look it up. I definitely don't know the name of my great-great-grandparents. But here we have just this line after line after line. So I believe Matthew ends with telling that there's 14 generations from Abraham to David, from David to going to Babylon, and from Babylon from Babylon to Jesus. I couldn't imagine keeping that many records straight of lineages. It's awesome that they did this because, as we're going to get into it here in just a second, we see how promises are fulfilled through that lineage. Genesis chapter 3, verses 13 through 15, it said, this is going to be a promise all the way back to Adam and Eve. It says, and the Lord God said unto the woman, what is thou that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. So obviously this is after Adam and Eve sinned. God's talking to them, asking them what they did. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise thy heel. So that bruise thy head is kind of easy to skip, but that bruising thy head of the serpent is Jesus. When he died on the cross and he rose again, he conquered death, he defeated hell and the grave. He bruised the head of the serpent. He no longer had any power. So Jesus was the promise made to Eve. So through Adam and Eve, through all of that lineage, we get to Jesus and he fulfills that promise. Abraham was promised by God to be the father of many nations. The promise was also fulfilled when Jesus died on the cross and whenever he rose. He didn't die just for the Jews, he died for all of us. So across many nations, we're now joint heirs with Christ, and Abraham was the father of that promise, so now that promise is fulfilled. So now, back to normal, everyday, boring life. Through Ruth's normal, everyday life, it could have happened to anyone, but she is what this story is about. She's in the lineage of the promises. The book of Ruth is all about restoration. It teaches us that our everyday, normal circumstances, God is with us and watching out for us, even when things are awful, even when things are good. Don't ever discount God or take him out of the equation. He cares for us just like he did for Adam and Eve at creation. Here's your miracles, Deb. Just like Abraham and Sarah whenever they were too old to have a kid. He takes care of us just as he did the Israelites when they had nothing but a sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them. He takes care of us just like he did with the Israelites when they came to Jericho. Just like David before Goliath and just like Daniel in the lion's den. And all of our biblical heroes, the same God that was with them is the same God that's with us in everyday life. I hope you guys have enjoyed the study of Ruth. I had a good time putting it together. Any comments? You'd have to talk to Sue, Deb's family, about that. Yeah.
Talking about shoes,
Uh-huh.
that put me to mind. Years ago, I pulled one of my shoes and run from it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I got to think about that he's talking about that.
What was the deal? What is the thing with the shoe? I don't know that I understood.
So whenever there was something to be redeemed, land or a wife, if they were basically switching that to another person, they would give the shoe to show as a sign that that other person is now the inheritor of that land that they had made a contract. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I would have gave Luke our shoe at closing on our house.
Good possibility the next generation that's gonna be walking on it is not coming from, this is becoming the next generation is the owner of the shoes.
Maybe. I actually I wondered that too. So I think it was originally, where we read about it in Deuteronomy, was supposed to be kind of an insult to the person not doing their duty. But I think it just became a traditional thing because, like I said, we don't see Boaz spit in the guy's face. So I think it just became a thing of tradition. I don't really know. That's just a guess. Yeah, he was. I don't know. Can I pass my shoe around and see if you guys fill it up with money? All right, that's all I got. I'll turn it back over to Luke. Exactly, and I think it shows something of Naomi's character too, because there was something Naomi did that I think made her want to experience the Jewish religion as well. So she could have been a witness to God through their life. I don't really know. Just kind of my personal opinion. I don't think you'd just follow your mother-in-law to a foreign land if there wasn't something else driving it.
Follow me wherever I went.
Wherever you go, I'll go too, Deb.
So, nice job, Mr. Matthew.
Yes.
So,
I look forward to your next boring story night.
go ahead.
I mean, nowadays, something a few years ago, in the airplane or something, they were at a press conference or whatever, and they threw a shoe and almost hit Bush or somebody. Oh, yeah, because that was a insult to our country. Whenever that person threw that shoe and almost hit our president. And that was a Bush, or a city. Something, President Bush.
Yeah.
I guess it's like the bottom of your foot. You're lower than the bottom of my foot or whatever.
So, the one thing that I gathered out of this is that Matt's mother-in-law inspired him. All right. So again, we appreciate Brother Matt doing that. We've tried to get some of our other folks involved a little bit on Wednesday nights. You guys hear me all the time, and it's good to get some other folks involved as well. We've had Austin and Robbie Cochran doing some things as well a few times, so we need to get them back up here as well to kind of get them involved as well. Because again, I talk and I can talk all the time, but isn't it good to have some of these other inputs and other just different viewpoints, the way that they come out? So God blesses us all in different ways in how to bring out these points. So now next week, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do next week. We've got a topic that we've been praying about that we are going to start, but I'm not sure if we'll start it next week because the following week is Bible school, if you can believe that. But the topic is going to be sharing Jesus without fear. Amen. So, again, we talk about things and then we come back in circles and we talk about things again in the church and in Bible studies and lessons. And, we've talked about witnessing and things in the past, and this kind of comes at it from a little bit different angle again. So hopefully I'm kind of excited about some of the things that we'll be able to share through that. And because again, the world needs Jesus. All right. We do want to take prayer requests tonight. We do want to close out in prayer. But before we do that, I want to announce this real quick so that I don't forget it at the end. Because again, I think most everybody was here Sunday and heard this. But again, for those of you that are 62 and older, we're hosting lunch at our house tomorrow. We want you to come over. We're going to fellowship. We're going to have some probably fried bologna and, potted meat. Yeah, have some potted meat.
Are you saying you're going to have soft food for those who don't have any?
Anybody that knows me very well, I am not a bologna eater, so you'll know that I'm feeding you a bunch of bologna right now. So, But we do look forward to having everybody over tomorrow. We'll probably, just have some fellowship, might have a game or something there. For those of you, if you've not been to our house and if you need directions, just let me or Belinda know. Again, we're just right out the road here. But if you get there tomorrow, if you have trouble with steps, I'm going to have the garage door open. Come through the garage, okay? Don't worry about it, because if you come through the garage, you've only got one step. If you come the other way, you got to come up about three to four steps. So if you got trouble with steps, come through the garage tomorrow, okay?
Now he's calling everybody old.
Nope.
Old and toothless.
Matt, your in-laws are troublemakers. All right. Who has a spoken prayer request tonight?
Charlie in prayer, he's having trouble with his knees, and remember Aaron in prayer, and remember Israel and our country, and our world leaders, and this upcoming elections and things that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Remember a friend of mine, her name's June Morris, she's 94, and she's just this little petite lady, and she has edema in her feet, she has a rash in her legs, and it's all the way up her legs. It's really bad, and she can't hardly walk, so remember her. And, my friend Bobby in Ohio, I had asked the church to remember her husband Jim, and he got to come home yesterday. And they're going to bring the nurses in with that antibiotic that they give you in your veins. And I talked to Bobby today, and she said he's just sleeping. Well, he's got an infection and he's sick. I guess I'm going to have to go up there and tell her she's not been around sick people. I have. But remember her too, because
All right.
she needs prayer. And still remember my family and my Aunt Marvin. And my daughter Allison has to have surgery, I think the 25th or the 27th. She had kidney stones and they had to remove them. Now they have to do the pipe part and left part or whatever, but they remember her.
Well, remember me in prayer too, I went yesterday to get blood work done, lab work, I guess they're checking PSA, and I think on the 17th of this month, I got Dr. Payne here, she's one of my doctors. I see her, just pray my blood will lab test and things come out real good.
All right. Jeff.
You guys remember the Shrewsbury family this guy I worked with? The whole family's just having all kinds of problems. He's the healthiest one of the bunch, and he's got high blood pressure and skin cancer and some other things. The son has an autism problem. The daughter, they just took her to Wake Forest, but she's passing out and getting dizzy. She's younger than Julianne. And then his wife was
those with unspoken needs tonight. I'm going to ask you to stand if you would. And ask everybody to pray tonight. Take all these needs, and as always, remember each other. Let's uphold one another in our thoughts and in our prayers. So, everybody, you can just pray in your own way tonight. And Brother Jeff, if you would, lead us out here and let's all pray. Father.